Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating tool at the very heart of modern finance. It's something that moves trillions of dollars around the globe, and yet it seems to be built on the idea of trading, well, absolutely nothing.
So right away, we've got a puzzle. It just doesn't seem to make sense, right? How can two companies, just by agreeing to trade their loan payments with each other, both come out ahead? I mean, where does that extra value possibly come from? That's the mystery we're going to solve.
All right, to get to the bottom of this, let's start with the basics. We've got to understand the thing at the center of it all, the swap itself. You can kind of think of it like a very specific, very private financial handshake.
So what is it, really? Well, at its most basic level, a swap is just a contract. It's an agreement to trade cash flows. Usually we're talking about the interest payments on loans for a certain amount of time. Nobody's trading actual things like stocks or barrels of oil. They're just trading payment streams.
Now, there are a couple of really key things to get here. First, these are private deals or over-the-counter. They're not happening out in the open on a public exchange. But the most important part, the thing you have to remember is this. The two sides only swap the interest payments, the cash flows. That huge pile of money underneath it all, the loan principal, it is never exchanged. That is absolutely crucial.
So how does this actually play out in the real world? It might sound a bit abstract, but the mechanics are surprisingly straightforward. Let's just walk through a classic example to see how all the pieces fit together.
Let's use a couple of names you'll definitely recognize. So imagine Microsoft has a loan with a floating interest rate, but they'd really prefer the certainty of a fixed rate. At the same time, Intel has a fixed rate loan, but they think they can do better with a floating one. Now, instead of going through all the hassle of refinancing, they can just swap. Their whole agreement will be based on a big round number. Let's say $100 million. This is what's called the notional principal. It's just a reference amount they use to calculate the interest payments. But here's the absolute kicker. That $100 million, it never, ever moves. It's not real. It's notional.
So this whole thing isn't a one-off deal. It's a relationship that plays out over time. Let's say it's a 3-year agreement, and they make payments every 6 months. Microsoft knows exactly what its bill is going to be every single time. It's fixed. But Intel's payment, that's going to change, because it's tied to a benchmark rate like LIBOR that moves up and down.
And this is where it gets really, really smart. When it's time to pay, they don't send these huge multi-million-dollar checks back and forth. No way. They just figure out the difference and net it out. In that first period, Microsoft owed a little more, so it just sends Intel the difference, $400,000. That's it. So clean, so simple, so efficient.
Okay, so this is where things start to get, a little weird. If a swap is just two companies trading payments so they can get the kind of loan they want, that doesn't really explain why this is one of the biggest financial markets on the planet. I mean, on the surface, it doesn't look like any new value is being created at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about it. You don't build a financial market worth trillions and trillions of dollars just because a bunch of companies keep accidentally taking out the wrong kind of loan. There has to be something much bigger, much more powerful going on here.
And in this simple model, here's the puzzle in black and white. If you just add up the total interest that both companies are paying before the swap and after the swap, it's exactly the same. The total cost of the system is LIBOR plus 5.3% no matter what. No money was saved. We've just moved it around.
Okay. So maybe we're missing a piece. What if you bring in a bank to act as a middleman to help set these deals up? That should help, right? But wait a minute. A bank's got to get paid for its work, which means it adds a cost to the system.
And this is what creates a genuine paradox. The thing that's supposed to help, the bank, actually makes the whole thing more expensive for the companies involved. The total cost to the system actually goes up. So why in the world would anyone do this? It seems like it's making things worse, not better.
All right, so the answer. The real reason this market is so massive, it comes down to a really brilliant economic principle. And it's all about finding an advantage in a place you wouldn't expect.
So here it is. This is the clue. Let's look at the borrowing rates for two different companies. You've got Company A, a top-tier company with a great credit rating, and you've got Company B, which is a little riskier. And, no surprise, Company A can borrow money more cheaply in both markets, fixed and floating.
But, and this is the whole game right here, look at how much of a disadvantage Company B is in. In the fixed-rate market, they're at a pretty big 1.2% disadvantage. Lenders want a big premium to lock in a rate for a riskier company for years. But in the floating-rate market, their disadvantage is only 0.7%. It's smaller. They are less disadvantaged there.
And that difference, that little gap between the two disadvantages, 1.2% versus 0.7%, that creates an opportunity. 0.5% or 50 basis points. That is the aha moment. It is literally a pool of potential savings created out of thin air that can be captured and shared. This is where the money comes from.
So now that we've found this little pot of gold, how do they actually capture it? Let's look at exactly how they set up the deal to turn that tiny difference into real, actual savings for everybody, even after the bank takes its cut.
It's this elegant four-step dance. Each company purposely goes out and borrows where it has the comparative advantage, where it's less disadvantaged. So Company A borrows fixed, Company B borrows floating. Then they swap with each other to get the loan type they wanted all along, and they structure the deal to split that 0.50% in savings that they just created together.
And look at the final result. It is just beautiful. By borrowing smart and then swapping, everybody wins. Company A wanted a floating rate, and now it effectively pays 0.25% less. And Company B, which wanted that fixed rate, also pays 0.25% less. They both beat the market. They both got a better deal than they could have on their own.
So let's just pull this all together. What's the big idea here? Swaps aren't just about shuffling payments around. They are a powerful machine for creating real value. And that value comes from exploiting these tiny, almost invisible differences in how different markets price risk. That is the engine that drives this whole massive global market.
And that just leaves you with one final question, doesn't it? This amazing principle of finding real value in the small gaps, the tiny differences between markets, it's not just for swaps. It's one of the fundamental engines of all of modern finance. And it just makes you wonder, where else is this incredibly powerful idea at work right now?